Hi everyone, thanks for joining us in this mission. My name is Tomas from SmartReach, and I'll be talking a little bit about JD Orchestrator and the main facility or the main integration that we have right now with different external applications running on REST. First of all, what's REST? Mainly, it's an architecture and style for developing web services. REST is established by representational state transfers, and it's pretty popular right now to integrate and build applications based on systems and features on the internet. So pretty much all the Internet of Things applications are using REST repositories or APIs right now, and that's one of the main features that we want to showcase right now in the JD Orchestrator. So the first things that we need to notice is that we are using right now JD 9.2 for this demo, and we're going to look after to make a simple but functional integration with Yahoo Weather to retrieve the information that we require in order to connect this repository of information from Yahoo, retrieve the information based on an output that we are looking after right now, and confirm the weather, temperature, and conditions from the city that we were looking after. The main thing that we need to do right now is to create a connection. So in the Oracle Orchestrator, as you can see right now, we have different options right now. And we got in the tools sections, the main tool set that we can use right now. So we can click on connections. And what we are going to do with this setup of tools is to create a new connection at this moment with Yahoo Weather. As you can see now, I already have created it. And the main thing that we need to look after is the service information section, that it's the endpoint from where we are going to retrieve the data from the REST repository for the API. Now, mainly all these REST repositories are public. So if we look after for the Yahoo Weather Information REST repository, we can see that it's public and available for everyone to develop and get the API working. For example, this one, we got the query selection and also the endpoint information for this API. So we're going to use this one that is public and available for anyone to try it out in their own instances. So once we got the Yahoo endpoint clarified, we are going to head down back again to JDE and click in Save to the connection, and make sure that we establish the type of connection to be an external REST API. Otherwise, this is not going to work as we expected it. So right now, we already have created our connection. The next step that we need to do right now is to create a service request in JD Orchestrator. We made that by selecting the service request section in the JD Orchestration Studio. And once we generated this one, we can click on Create Service Request. And then we select Connector. So we can call out the connector we have just already created. We give it a name, and this name will be Yahoo Weather. A product code, this is using the standard product codes of JDE, that is going to be 55 for all custom applications that we are developing. We just choose that one. And a short description that is going to be the one that we are going to look after once we are looking to integrate this connector or service request in orchestrations. We're going to type in Yahoo Weather XML, because that's the format we're going to retrieve at this moment. And now in the connection, we are going to select the one that we already have created, that is Yahoo Weather XML connection. And as you can see, we get a little bit of information about this one. For example, we are getting the endpoint that we are looking after right now. If we click on the endpoint, we are going to see that this endpoint is based on GQL statements. Those are the parameters that we are going to be starting to input here in the parameter sections of the JDE service request connector settings. So the main thing that we need to look after right now is which parameters the API is going to receive and which information we are going to get from that API because we are going to request an HTTP method get, and we can already select a variety of different methods to be calling the REST API. But at this moment it's a get repository that we are going to look after. So if we look after the documentation of the Yahoo Weather API, they are looking after to make a get endpoint request, and also they are going to select the data based on their public database, so we can consult it in real time with GQL. So at this moment, what I'm going to do right now is copy the GQL query that we are looking after in the documentation of Yahoo Weather, and we are inputting as a parameter here of Q of query and the value of the API that we're looking after. So we are looking after to get here this information, that it's a simple query requiring the weather forecast for a specific location that we are sending through this query. Just to give you an example of how this might look, let's see the official documentation of Oracle. So what we need to do right now is to include the information that we are going to send as a parameter for our connector. In this case, we are using the field HTTP method as get. We are not configuring any fire and forget switch that is going to be disabled. The padding is not required, and the parameters that we are looking at for right now are the ones that we are going to input in the service request connector. The main value is Q, and the value that we are going to send right now is this one, where we are going to input the location. The second value is the format of the instruction that we are sending or receiving. In this case, it's JSON. That is the standard format that Yahoo Weather uses. And right after that is the environment from where we are looking after the data from the Yahoo Weather service. In this case, the environment is the database where it's all stored to be retrieved in real time. So we are setting up that right now. Alright, so based on this we can already test our connector and see the information that we are sending and receiving is properly set up. If we, for example, send information about a location that does not exist, or a location that is not available for Yahoo Weather to determine the location, the server will send us an error message that the location is not available or does not exist. So let's click on the test button at this moment, input the location, for example Houston. We execute the request, and as we can see, at this moment we are receiving the data from Yahoo Weather API displayed on JSON format, indicating the time where the request was created, the title, in this case the temperature that we are looking after right now, and a different set of data that we might be using right now. For example, the wind direction, the location of the city, the atmospheric information. All of these values are in JSON format, and they can be modeled after any time or any input output that we want. So we can change the way this information look and use it in additional external or internal applications inside Orchestrator. So based on this, we can see that a lot of information is being public by Yahoo Weather at this moment. For example, the date and the time of the current inquiry, the sunset and sunrise information, and about every information regarding meteorological conditions in the region. Let's try it out again, but with a different location, to see if it's working with different sites. For example, Mexico City. And as you can see, the Yahoo Weather API is not retrieving any information because I didn't specify quite well the city. I only specified the country. If I look after to input the correct name, Mexico City, the API reply with information of Mexico City, as the same way we did it with Houston, Texas. So the basic setup of a connector implies 3 steps at this moment. First of all, we need to generate our connection, indicating the endpoint and also the certificates of authentication that is required to make the consults, well, to make the inquiries in the server. If we are using a public API with a REST connection, we do not need any authentication, like in this example for Yahoo Weather. If we are using a private REST repository for an API, we need to send the authentication in the header of the connector in order we can perform a proper connection and retrieve the information that it might be not public or available for everyone to use. After we have set up the connector, then we make the service request with the connector action, input the parameters that we are going to send to the web service, test it out, and confirm the output of this web service, retrieve the information, and we can modify the output, as you can see here, to use it in any of our different applications internally or externally on Orchestrator. For example, if we want to modify the output of the weather that we're looking after right now, we can do it so in Groovy language or in JSON and map these values inside another web service or another orchestration inside the JD Orchestration Studio. And at this moment, the third thing that we need to look after right now is that once we have created a service request, we are going to look after to make this service request available inside different orchestrations of our Orchestrator Studio. Now, if we look after to make this connection available for everyone, or this service request available, the only thing that we need to do is publish it. At this moment, you can see that this Yahoo Weather API or connection service, it's in my personal bucket. Once we request to be public inside of Orchestration Studio, it will be available as a shared connection or shared service request, and everybody using the JD environment will be able to retrieve the information from this connector or service request. Those are the main 3 aspects of the connection with an external repository from Orchestration Studio. We will look after to make more information about this. A detailed instruction guide will be public and available for everyone to inquire. And keep in touch for the next series that we are going to look after to use this information that we already created inside a Orchestrator in interacting with different applications of JD. Thank you.